Hey everyone, welcome to the second half of our Creativebug Daily Challenge, the Watercolor Lettering, a daily practice with Jess Park. And I should introduce us. I am Heidi, joined by Lucy and Nancy. We are the Crafty Chatters, or the Chatty Crafters. I'm not sure which name I like better.
Both. I like both. Works either way.
So we're focusing on the second half of the program. So we had our midway that aired earlier. So you can look for that on the YouTube channel. Because as of recording right now, I don't know what date that is being aired. Or did they send that out? I don't know. Anyway, so here we are. Second half. Not as much lettering as I was thinking there would be. I guess overall, I thought this program was going to be more just like the technique of lettering and doing it with watercolor. And what we did was a lot of watercolor that you applied to lettering. I guess I'm just going to start off saying that it was a great program, but I think it was not a good fit for me at this time. Yeah. I really lost focus with it, and I lost a lot of patience towards the end because I was like, I don't want to paint fruit, and these flowers aren't working for me. And I also just didn't feel like I had the time carved out that needed to be spent, working on this, to work on these techniques. Every day was like this new thing, and it was just kind of overwhelming.
And every day was drastically different. And there was a lot of information that was given, that she gave out in the last 4 or 5 episodes, that would have made life for the rest of the month so much easier. So this felt more like an advanced or an intermediate, like an advanced intermediate level skill set, where it's very, very helpful to have some experience with watercolor. It's not necessary, but you're going to be working a little bit harder to control the watercolors, because that was the biggest thing that I had the hardest time with, was she doesn't give any instruction on how to control watercolors and how to, because they're very fickle. The pigments move very strangely because they're water-based. Water has a mind of its own. So I struggled with that a lot. I've wanted to learn watercolor for a long time, so this really opened a door for me, and I dove deep into watercolor through this month, and I think that was very, very fun. But it wasn't what I expected. I did expect more technique with the lettering and more of that and less of like watercolor. So in that way, it was kind of frustrating for me. We also did not end up using all of the supplies that she had on her list. The Tombow brush pens, we never use these. She never talks about these. What were the other things that she never really talks about watercolor tube paints, and she never really talks about watercolor pan paints. She really focuses on the liquid watercolors, which are easier to use, and that because they're pre-mixed and you don't have to mix your watercolors.
And they have a greater depth. They're called watercolor inks. So it was frustrating to me sometimes as I'm painting along, like my stuff just didn't look as rich. Yeah. Faded, and it just didn't have that quality. And I know, like, I was using a supply that was, and even my paper wasn't of the same quality as hers, because I wasn't going to invest like that. And it was almost one of those things where it's like, okay, this is one of those experiences where you can't fudge the material if you want.
Well, that Karen art pad that she used, that's $70. That art pad is so expensive, and that I wasn't willing to invest that much in it. And it's something like with the watercolor inks, there was I was having a lot of pigment dispersal issues. So like this letter right here, that's with pan watercolor. The outside, all the pigment floated to the outside edge, so the outside edges were darker. This is with a watercolor marker, and it's a lot more consistent across the letters. So the pigments didn't pool, and that I was getting really angry with and really frustrated. Full disclosure, I was getting very angry at why the watercolors weren't behaving, because all the painting I've done is with acrylic. And I'm used to acrylic of like, it goes where you want it to. It cooperates very well.
The only way I got depth is if I used it really heavy, which is not usually how you work with watercolor. Like I had to, it was like really thick, whereas I got that same thing with dispersal, but then it helped to do the shadowing.
It did.
You know, but still, it, you know.
She talks about the text effects, the embellishments that she talks about. She starts on day 16 and 17. Those really, really elevated it. And that looked way, way better with the embellishments and the shadows. That was a lot of fun. And I did really enjoy that. And I found myself using that later on. I think one of my favorite things was the galaxy lettering.
Yeah, that looks really nice.
This was so much fun.
That was hard to do. Maybe I did too long of a word and it was a hot day and it started to dry. Because this is one where you paint with just water and then add the colors into it. Well, first we should say, okay, so first you start off one day and you draw or you paint a galaxy, right? So you learn that technique and then you're supposed to apply it to the lettering. Same thing with like, oh, yours is nice.
Thank you.
Oh. And then, then you do the landscape. Lucy, you did that. And then you're supposed to do that. Did you do that one in a word?
Sorry, there's a vacuum.
Those turned out really nice. Well, and it was something where like early on, I was playing with that concept of wet on wet watercolor in preparation for this. Yeah. So that I felt like it didn't turn out the way I expected it to, but I was a little bit more prepared for what it was going to do once I got to that unit. So like I did a lot of practicing. So before I would do my final piece for that day, I would spend a lot of time practicing, especially for the flowers, the florals and the berries and the leaves. I did so much practice. I also went to YouTube to look for flower tutorials. Because her flowers were just not working for me and I couldn't get them the way that I couldn't get mine to look the way hers looked. So I tried something different, which worked for me, but that's not necessarily going to be what everybody's going to take out of it. And you don't have to do that much homework with this, I don't think, or you shouldn't have to.
No, because I think you're approaching the program to do the program and not to be, I don't have, an 8-hour day to be like, I'm attending school.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that you guys both went into it, because Lucy, you also got some other resources. Didn't you get some lettering books, right? And
yeah, so I when like I just had to find I felt like she was teaching us really one way to letter, and then she would do her own lettering, but she hadn't gone over that. And so I felt like I needed a little bit more support. So I got some lettering books from the library, and a lot of them were like, I still was struggling with that style. Like I could do it tracing it, and if I don't think about it, I can do it, but I would overthink it. But I got this one book, and we can link to it, The Art of Whimsical Lettering. And it's totally different because it's like,
oh, that's really cool.
It's still lettering, but it's like within shapes, and it's very much like using your own styles. But there you can see they're doing some of the stuff she did, like the white paint pens and the so I just had fun. Like I just started writing. I started like writing just a bunch of different words, and then I was writing like the colors of watercolors. Ponder, fern. But it was just, it was a little bit, it was really helpful for me to kind of get outside the mindset of like, I have to do it to make it look like she's doing it.
Yeah.
And this is the book that made me realize like, oh, if I just want to use lettering, I got to find my own style. And then take from her the combination of the watercolor techniques and you know, kind of putting lettering in like that. So that it did open doors for me as far as like, well, maybe mine doesn't have to be perfect calligraphy, but not that she was doing calligraphy, but you know what I mean, like brush paint.
Yeah, like brush. Well, it's a lot of folks are calling it modern calligraphy.
Yeah.
Or like brush calligraphy is the term that I'm finding a lot online for this. I did get her book from the library. So her book is called Watercolor Lettering, a step-by-step workbook for painting embellished scripts and beautiful art. I got that primarily because I wanted to see how different it was from the Creativebug program. The biggest thing that she adds into that book that was helpful was that she actually gave you the capital letters in brush lettering. So I made
it's almost like
I made a sheet. I think it's out in the living room, but
it would have been a better program if it would have, again, for me, focused on just lettering, and then we could have done like large capital letters.
Yeah,
the big letters and the little letters together.
I think her focus was really on the watercolor, because I think that's really, I was getting the feeling that's where her passion lies.
Yeah.
Is in the watercolor, and that the lettering is just an embellishment.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the stuff that she creates is very beautiful
and
vivid, and it's wonderful. But as far as like the brush lettering, that I didn't get as much of that from this program. I was able to was really surprised that my lettering got a lot better over the course of the program. So like this was the second one that I did. It says I can't even.
That's still really good though.
And like, this is the last one that I did. It's really hard to see because it's metallic.
No,
but it's
Stay Wild, Moonchild. That looks
that's
great.
This was one of the last ones, the faux planet that she did. And I was just so enormously happy with this one. So it hit a point later on where the stuff that I was making, I didn't have to draw lines anymore. So I was drawing pencil lines on the papers to keep my lettering straight. And I could just do it the way that she did it, just freehand. And I wasn't having to pre-plan my letters, because for the first half of the program, I was writing out the letters and then tracing over them with a marker to make sure that I actually got them the way that I wanted them. That became a problem for some of the stuff with watercolor because I wasn't expecting it to be as transparent, where you can still see my pencil marks through the watercolor.
That would have been so helpful though, because
I wasn't. I'm also just like a hyper planner where I was like, this has to be perfect.
Well, that's what I struggled the most with, like tracing her letters on her little worksheets on the tracing paper, and then you go to do it on your own, and I just couldn't like make the connect from. I'd look at the letter and I'd try to do it, and I felt like a kid learning to write again.
I know, I did too. It brought up a lot of bad memories about learning cursive in elementary school, because I write in cursive regularly, but I got a lot of crap from teachers of like, this isn't correct cursive, and my mom has perfect penmanship, and she looks at my writing and she's like, that looks terrible, and I was like,
yeah, I had a teacher.
My writing.
Like, I think it was as early as first grade, even when they were teaching writing, and I think the teacher said to my mom, like, Lucy's penmanship is not beautiful, but her ideas are so great that we're just going to let her go with it. And I was like, okay. But then looking back, I'm like, that's a cool story. Looking back though, I'm like, well, maybe if she'd helped me a little bit, because it's like,
yeah, exactly.
But did you feel, Nancy, that you had a point, because you probably did the most lettering of the three of us, I think, that it clicked for you? Like, is it like, would you feel confident just picking up a pen and kind of doing that?
Yes, there was a point that it clicked for me. It was around, because so it was around like day, sorry, I'm blanking really terribly. It was really around day like 29 with the daily practice that the lettering clicked for me, because I was practicing every day. So I was doing like 2 lines on a practice sheet on tracing paper or like going through the alphabet once every day, because I wanted to get that down, because I wanted to use the lettering for my planner. That was my initial plan for this, was I wanted it to translate over to my planner stuff. And it was going okay and it was fine, but then you do the brush lettering with a paintbrush, and that was harder. So once I kind of did okay with the paintbrush and went back to the pens, that was the click point. So like then that was when it made sense for me, of like, okay, now I get how this is supposed to behave. I still feel like I do better if I draw lines onto something. So this one I drew just 2 lines and then tried to keep my letters the same size. So it was a lot easier to keep my letters the same size once it clicked.
Right. Okay.
And that was a lot easier. But yeah, I think the one thing that there was a second click point for me that made this a lot easier was working. She talks about in the floral chapters, working on multiple paintings at once, which that was a game changer. That for the watercolor, that changed everything for me and made my life so much easier. So I did this one at the same time that I did the planet and the laurel. I did these at the same time. So that, and I was able to get better results as I was jumping back and forth and letting each layer dry. That really, really helped. I wish that she would have said that earlier in the class, because that would have made my life easier in the long run. But
I did now that I know laurel,
oh,
but I never put anything inside.
That's fine.
Because the lettering escapes me.
I did
this
it.
One is
half it was like off center, so I was kind of like, great.
Oh, but your berries.
Heidi, but your berries are beautiful.
Thank you. I did like my berries.
Oh, your berries.
I did just a letter in there too, but I think my letter's off too, like just S.
Mine isn't centered. I did struggle with that too, with getting things centered, because it is a little off to the side.
Yours works because it's the 2 words, and it's just, and you flourished very nicely on that. So we did decide that we didn't have a chance to make a crown, but
oh yeah, Nancy was
down to Nancy.
First place. Nancy got first place.
She really won the challenge.
I did a lot of homework. That was I put.
So that would be a good takeaway for this one. That and for you, I think something that you said is pretty important, is that you did the homework and you practiced because you had another place where you were going to use this. And I think that that's actually a good point, that like if you're just diving, like I struggled to even come up with things to write that weren't her things. So it's like I don't know, I don't have a place for lettering right now, so I wonder if that was part of why I was like, well,
I did also spend a half an hour diving through my Pinterest trying to find phrases and stuff to write. Because I have a lot of things planned for cross stitch and embroidery, of like snarky, sassy, fun things to say on those projects. So I had a library of phrases to pull from.
That's great.
Which was really helpful. So spending a half an hour making a list of the things that I wanted to put in there helped engage my creative process enough that I felt like I was putting a little bit more into the paintings, instead of just, because some of the stuff that she uses, the phrases are just like, they're very cutesy and a little cheesy, which is very fun and can be great. On those days, I was not feeling cutesy and cheesy. I was frustrated and really wanted to say something, and there were a lot of bleeped words. So it wasn't that I was frustrated with her. I was frustrated with my own skills.
Right.
And my talent with it, which did get better, but that was the days. I'm like, I don't want to talk about how I want to throw confetti. Like, that's
I know.
So I mean, it is a good class. I guess for me is like, I just had other things to work on to where I didn't feel like I could dedicate and put my focus into.
There you go.
So
I
But
did
I
for
really
that
liked this
day.
when I went back and I
I
had to
think,
do all the
you know,
emails.
I was kind of
For
picturing
that
a
day, this
challenge that, ooh, wow, that's a nice one.
Wow.
Wildfire looks great.
That was her kindness.
The kind of thing where you can like dip in here,
Yeah.
I guess is more manageable for me at this time. And yeah, I mean, I guess just knowing that, like, yeah, if you're ready to really take like a deep dive, like it's like you're attending a class. I just keep saying it. It's just like that's what I liken it to because of the fact that, you know, but it would be nice too if she mentioned other resources. Like, we're fortunate you've got the library, you could go there and get the books and different things like that to help you. So,
or even putting it in the PDF.
yeah.
I don't think that it would be that much trouble to put a page of the capital letters in the PDF, or to make a small resources section. That doesn't take up a lot of space, and that would have been super, super helpful for the folks that want to do more homework on it and want to put a little bit more into it. She does mention in the comments on the Creativebug page, on like the video page, that she has other courses lit on Creativebug that go over the things that she didn't talk about in this.
But I can only find one other class that she teaches on Creativebug.
Oh, because yeah, somebody asked about the capital letters, and I think she said, "Oh, I use those in another program."
So
it would have been nice if one of the sheets had the alphabet all spelled out, because I know she did like the different types of letters because they get more and more complicated. But then once you've learned those, I would have liked to just have like the alphabet to practice. You know, right there.
And that's where books, some of the library books helped me because they would have that. So I would just put a piece of tracing paper over that and write out an alphabet.
I do feel like I do want to still practice my lettering, and I think I'm going to try and find a book like you did, and still work on that aspect of it.
Yep.
That Whimsical Lettering book looks really lovely, because I did check out, I found one other lettering book at the library that was available. It's Brush Lettering by Rebecca Cahill Roots, and that was really cool because she creates a lettering alphabet for each different brush lettering pen that she uses. So she takes advantage of the different attributes of like the thickness and the wetness of all the different pens that she was using and tailors the alphabet to that.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really helpful and did kind of give me a little bit more insight into more of the technique of brush lettering. So that one was really helpful.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, and another thing I'd take away for me is I feel like I'm gaining experience in researching the daily challenges, kind of to know what to go in and look for. Because I tend to not want to, well, you don't want to watch the whole thing at once. It's 4 hours, but you kind of have to dip in to see, you know, because a lot of, like we're saying, a lot of the materials you didn't need. You didn't need a sand eraser. You didn't need brush cleaner. The Tombow markers. There's a lot of things that were on that materials list that were not necessary. So
yeah,
that was kind of frustrating too.
Yeah, that was the not needing the supplies, and then the things that were missing. I think at one point we talked about, she'll say, well, you just do this or you just do that, and not explaining exactly what she's doing, which for visual learners that works very well. For kinesthetic, and so for like me, I learned by doing and by having it explained to me. That was not quite my learning style. It was harder for me to pick up.
She would get done with the thing and be like, and now you've made a monogram and a laurel. And you're like, no, I didn't.
No, I didn't.
Like, wait, I know, but I
don't know what I made.
Yeah.
That's not what I made.
And it's funny because we came off of a challenge that was like very much open-ended and creative.
Yeah.
But in a different way. Like I guess the one we did before that with Courtney Cerruti, there was no expectation for a certain product.
Yeah.
Like this one, she'll be like, now you have your monogram and a floral, and you're like, but I don't have that.
Yeah, there was no wrong answer, or there was no product that you were going to complete with Courtney Cerruti's program that would not fit with what she was teaching.
Right.
And it was completely open-ended. With this, you had a goal in mind. You had something specific that was the point of that day. So that was another frustrating point of like, if you're not getting to that point, it's almost like, why am I watching these?
Yeah, because she's building on techniques. So like by the end, she's like, okay, using all the techniques we've learned. And you're like, but I'm still struggling. Like I want to, make the gift cards or whatever, but I maybe don't have all the techniques. So.
Yeah. That would be a lot more frustrating to me and a deal breaker for Creativebug if I was paying for Creativebug.
Yeah.
But because this is with my library card and I'm paying for the library card in many regards with taxes. So that makes it worth it to me. This is one of the better, because I have done a couple Creativebug programs on their website where I'm just like, why is this even here? There's one about bias binding that is not helpful in any regard. This is much, much better. She does explain things much better than some of the other creators on Creativebug.
Yeah.
But it's a complicated technique and it's a complicated skill. It would be hard to break it down in a way that's perfect for everybody.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And I do think giving you 30 days is a good idea. And
yes.
And I mean, and the other thing is like, we might be saying, oh, it didn't have this, it didn't have that, but like I've enjoyed what I've done enough on Creativebug where I've told other people about it. Like I'm just like, you have to check this out. I think you'd really like it. There's so many different things there. So
I am getting a lot out of the service.
Yeah,
I think I'm getting a lot more out of it than I would on YouTube. I think. And I go to YouTube for a lot of things.
Yeah.
That I am getting a lot out of this. I've watched more programs that I've liked, more videos that I've liked than more that I haven't.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's a good service. And yeah, I mean you're teaching to such a wide audience.
You are. Yeah.
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 So
yeah.
I guess one last thing I thought would be good to mention was a good place for supplies.
Yes.
Other than local, like as far as for getting the pens, and now we discovered you can get pencils too, was that Mr. Art?
Yep. So it's spelled MISTER, like spell out the word Mr. Art.com. That's where and it comes quickly. Yeah. The prices are good. That's originally how I found it, is like I clicked on something and they were like, oh, my computer told me you can get this at a better price at Mr. Art. Yeah. But they do sell a lot of like if you're using colored pencils and you just need these colors, or you want something really specific, a nice deep gray, or it's all individual there, which is nice because that's sometimes hard to find.
Yeah, and that's they have a huge catalog, and I didn't know about them until today when we were talking about places to get these tools. So I'm going to be looking into that for the future. Yeah. I got the majority of my pens off of a website called JetPens, JetPens.com. They do more stuff with stationery, is the focus for JetPens, but that is the cheapest place that I found to buy individual markers. So like the Pentel Touch and the Tombow Fudenosuke brush pens, these ones were half as much as they were anywhere else, even in a multi-pack. So these were like $2 to $3 a piece, where it's on JetPens. So it's much, much more affordable. The other thing about JetPens that's very helpful is they have an exhaustive list of buying guides and testing guides where they show you exactly what each marker and pen looks like. They do color swatches. It's an exhaustive resource for any different type of pen that you want. And I like them because I like to buy one of each different pen that I want to try it, and then if I don't like it, I'm really only out the cost for one pen instead of a whole pack of them. So for me, that's more cost effective to be able to try it just one of them and then buy more if I need them. That is also because I do a lot of planner stuff and I'm doing a lot of stationery related things, and I'm very specific on the pens that I like. That works for me. It doesn't necessarily work for everybody though. But still my favorite. Blick Art is also a good one.
Yeah, I do.
For more of the studio art and a little bit of the higher end stuff, they have all the Eco line.
Yeah, they had a good price on those paints.
They did. Yeah, the Ecoline
they
paints,
have
the
good
liquid
prices.
watercolors. Yeah. And then they also have PH Martin's, which is more alcohol inks and India inks, which you can use for this. They do dry a little faster. But they had good prices for those supplies. That's the word.
Well, great.
Yeah.
So we made it through.
We did.
It was fun. So
I made it.
I mean, I would recommend it. I would recommend the program. Just, you know.
Yeah,
It's just like something to watch because it's so much fun watching her paint.
I know,
She's
and I do
incredibly
think
sweet too. She's just
She's
adorable.
very sweet. Yeah.
yeah, and my interest in watercolor, like I want to play around more with watercolors because
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this, I guess it went in a different direction than I thought it was going to, and I think I started to get a little resistant, but
Yeah.
now in hindsight, it's like, yeah, the lettering I feel better with, and I do feel inspired to play with watercolor again, where I had kind of gotten out of touch with that.
Right.
So
Yeah.
more to explore,
Yes.
more boxes to add to my wall.
Your tower.
You moved your boxes. You have more space now.
Yeah, I do. I have like room for,
More stuff.
more
Yep.
stuff. So, or work with what I have in any event. So I guess that wraps that up. We're on to our next challenge for September, which is what is it called?
30 coloring.
30 days of coloring, and it's with
Get creative. Oh yeah, with different people. Sorry.
different people who have contributed their drawings for us to color.
Right, and then there's different techniques. So.
And we're all really excited about this. I mean, personally, because I don't really make time for coloring. It's like I have to have an excuse for it, or I don't allow for it. So
I used to color a lot, so I'm really excited about this. It's I know Courtney Cerruti and Lisa Condren are two of the creators. There's a third creator that I'm blanking on right now. I can't find it on Creativebug. It's deep in my watch list.
It's Pam Garrison. So
Pam Garrison.
Oh yeah, Pam Garrison
and Courtney Cerruti.
Yeah. So I used to color a lot, and I have a lot of coloring supplies, so I'm excited to pull those back out and be able to do that again.
Yeah, we color with glitter at one point.
That I'm super geeked about. I love glitter.
Cool.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I guess we'll check back in a couple more weeks to see how the coloring's gone.
Definitely. Thank you guys for joining us for this review, for this video from our. Thank you guys for joining us for our review of Watercolor Daily Lettering Practice with Jess Park on Creativebug. We will catch you next time for our halfway video with the meditative draw, or with the coloring program that we're doing next. I'm stumbling all over my words today. But until the next time we see you, stay safe, stay healthy, and don't forget to love each other. Bye, guys.